Welcome back to our channel. Think it's just a penny? Think again. Like and subscribe to find valuable coins in your pocket. In 1972, the United States was navigating a turbulent chapter in its history. The Vietnam War dominated headlines, public trust in government was beginning to erode, and the economy showed early signs of inflationary stress. Yet amidst the national unrest, the U.S. Mint remained a quiet engine of consistency. Coins continued to pour from its presses, including over 2.9 billion one-cent pieces struck in Philadelphia that year, more than enough to reach every pocket in the country. The Lincoln cent, unchanging in design since 1959, continued to feature Abraham Lincoln's solemn profile on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, a symbol of stability in uncertain times. The 1972 Lincoln cent was supposed to be ordinary. It was struck on a bronze composition, 95% copper, 5% zinc, and weighed 3.11 grams, consistent with standards that had held since 1962. Its features were straightforward, with well-defined inscriptions and a classic matte surface. But even in high-volume precision minting, perfection is elusive. And in 1972, a particular flaw escaped detection in a way that would forever elevate the status of this penny. One Saturday morning in 1989, Harold Benton, a quiet numismatist from Albany, New York, was sorting through an old coffee tin of change his late uncle had left behind. Most of the coins were unspectacular, nickels dulled by time, common quarters, and a scattering of pennies from the 60s and 70s. But one coin made him pause. It was a 1972 Lincoln cent that seemed slightly off. The date appeared bolder, with a ghost-like doubling on the numbers. The word, Liberty, also shimmered oddly under the light, as if a second set of letters was trying to break free from the surface. Harold had spent years studying die varieties, and his instincts kicked in. He brought out a magnifying loupe and examined the coin under light from multiple angles. The doubling was dramatic and unmistakable. Every digit in the date showed separation. The letters "In God We Trust" were thick, their edges shadowed by a second, slightly offset strike. This wasn't a case of mechanical doubling, a common and often worthless error. It had all the hallmarks of a true double die. The coin was sent for authentication. The verdict came back quickly. 1972 Lincoln cent, double die obverse, FS 101, negative 58 Australian dollars red-brown. Harold had stumbled upon one of the most prominent and valuable die varieties in modern U.S. coinage. But what made it so compelling wasn't just the error itself, it was the magnitude of it, and the way it remained hidden in plain sight. The error occurred when one of the master dies used to strike cents in Philadelphia had been misaligned during the hubbing process. Instead of a single impression from the master hub, the die received a second impression that was slightly off from the first. The result was a duplicated image on the die itself, which then transferred this doubling to every coin it struck. Only a limited number of these flawed dies were used before the issue was discovered and corrected, meaning that out of the billions of 1972 pennies produced, only a small fraction bore the error. Collectors began combing through their change, hoping to find their own double die examples. The surge in interest led to the discovery of several more, and experts eventually cataloged 8 different double die varieties for 1972. But only one, the FS 101, was considered major, with doubling so clear that even a novice could spot it unaided. Over the next 2 decades, the 1972 double die cent developed a cult-like following. It became a rite of passage for serious Lincoln cent collectors. Entire books and forums dedicated sections to it. Its rise wasn't just due to the striking visual nature of the error, but also the fact that it emerged in an era when the mint had tighter quality control than ever before. That something so blatant could slip through was both baffling and exhilarating. In 2002, a Mint State 63 red example surfaced at auction. It was sharp, well struck, and still gleamed with its original red luster. Bidding started modestly, but within minutes the price soared, fueled by collectors who knew just how elusive a high-grade version truly was. It sold for $21,000, setting a new record for the variety at the time. But the story didn't end there. In 2014, a collector from Ohio named Jessica Lorne brought a coin to a local dealer. She had found it in a penny jar she'd been using to teach her kids about saving. It was a 1972 cent with extremely bold doubling, more pronounced than most examples on record. It was later graded MS65 red, a condition so rare for this error that it generated immediate buzz in numismatic circles. The coin eventually sold privately for $78,000, a stunning sum for a 1-cent piece. More discoveries followed, though none quite as pristine. A few MS64s surfaced, one of which exhibited near-perfect doubling with virtually no surface marks. It sold for $63,000 at auction in 2017, further solidifying the coin's status as one of the most desirable modern U.S. errors. What added intrigue to this variety was the subtle line between value and deception. Many circulated 1972 cents show minor mechanical doubling, a result of die bounce or die fatigue, which gives a similar, yet ultimately worthless, appearance. The genuine doubled die FS101 was distinct in that its doubling occurred on the die itself, not in the minting process. For collectors, learning to differentiate between the two became a necessary skill. For scammers, the error was a tempting target, with counterfeits occasionally appearing online, poorly faked with added copper layers or false doubling etched into the surface. By 2020, fewer than 2 dozen MS65 red examples of the 1972 doubled die cent were known to exist. Many other verified examples were AU or circulated, their details worn from years in pockets and drawers before anyone noticed what they were. The rarity of pristine specimens added fuel to the fire. Every time a high-grade coin emerged, it was news. Then came the twist. In 2022, a Pennsylvania collector known for his background in photomicrography submitted a 1972 double die cent that appeared different from all the known FS101s. The doubling was present, unmistakable in the date and motto, but the coin also showed faint, secondary doubling in the word Liberty, which hadn't previously been recorded on any known specimen. Experts debated the nature of this variation. Was it a new die variety? A transitional die between known errors? Or had a second double die escaped notice for 50 years? It was sent for analysis and returned graded MS64 red with a special notation, FS101 with additional unexplained doubling. The coin sold in a private sale to a well-known Lincoln cent specialist for $96,000, breaking previous records and fueling speculation that the 1972 series still held secrets yet to be uncovered. The search for more continues today. Thousands of collectors still sift through change, hoping to spot those telltale signs: the split serifs, the doubled strokes on the date, the eerie shadows behind the letters. Some find nothing. Others find examples that just barely miss the mark. But for those lucky few who uncover the real thing, the reward is both financial and emotional. It's the thrill of discovery wrapped in history, the satisfaction of pulling something rare from the depths of the ordinary. The 1972 double die penny has transformed from an overlooked anomaly to a modern treasure. It's a story that reminds collectors and historians alike that even in a coin struck by the millions, one small shift in alignment, one moment of mechanical imperfection, can leave behind a legacy of fascination. Today, depending on its grade and luster, the 1972 U.S. 1-cent penny with the FS101 double die error commands between $60,000 and $132,000. It stands as one of the most valuable and iconic Lincoln cents ever minted, a humble coin turned legend through the quiet power of a mistake.
In 1990, the United States Mint operated with precision and predictability, producing coinage at a scale unimaginable to most Americans. Among the billions of coins struck that year was the 1-cent penny bearing the enduring image of Abraham Lincoln. For over 8 decades, Lincoln's profile had stood firm on the obverse of the cent, and by 1990, it was a familiar fixture in the pockets, purses, and drawers of everyday citizens. The memorial reverse, which had been in place since 1959, was still in use, displaying the solemn monument where Lincoln's legacy was etched in stone. That year alone, the Philadelphia Mint produced over 6.8 billion pennies, while the Denver Mint added more than 4.9 billion. These coins were routine, functional, and seemingly unremarkable, yet among this ocean of uniformity, something unexpected took shape. A small number of coins slipped through the system, their true nature undetected by the machines and processes designed to prevent mistakes. These were not dramatic errors at first glance. No missing dates. No off-center strikes. Just a small detail gone astray, subtle enough to be ignored, rare enough to become priceless. Jonathan Harris had never been a collector in the traditional sense. A high school history teacher in Tulsa, Oklahoma, he had a quiet fascination with U.S. currency. He kept a small display of historical coins in his classroom to spark student interest, but he didn't scour coin shows or invest thousands in rare finds. His hobby was simple. He would exchange paper currency for rolls of coins at his local bank and sift through them in the evenings, a cup of tea by his side, always curious about what the coins might reveal. In the spring of 2005, during one of these quiet sessions, Jonathan opened a bankroll of pennies that had likely gone untouched for years. Among the copper-colored coins, one caught his attention. It was dated 1990 and bore no mint mark. That in itself was not unusual. Philadelphia cents traditionally lacked mint marks. But as he inspected the coin more closely under a magnifying glass, something felt off. The edges were unusually sharp. The relief on Lincoln's face was deeper than what he had seen on other 1990 pennies. The surface shimmered with an odd luster, and when he weighed it, the reading came to 3.11 grams. His heart beat faster. By 1990, Lincoln cents were no longer struck in bronze. That composition had ended in 1982, replaced by copper-plated zinc planchets weighing just 2.5 grams. The coin in his hand, with its higher mass, should not have existed. He triple-checked the scale, tested the coin against other cents, and finally reached out to a regional coin shop for advice. The dealer, intrigued, recommended he submit it to a third-party grading service for authentication. Weeks passed before the package returned. The grading company's report was short and stunning. 1990 Lincoln cent, struck on bronze planchet, MS 64 red-brown. The coin was genuine. The implications were clear. Somehow, 8 years after the bronze planchets had been retired, one had resurfaced and been struck with 1990 dies. The chances were minuscule. Either a leftover planchet had escaped the melting process and been misfed into the striking chamber, or a foreign blank of similar composition had entered the production line. No one knew for sure. The discovery didn't make the news, but in coin circles, it started a ripple. In online forums and numismatic newsletters, word of the rogue 1990 bronze cent began to circulate. For years, collectors had speculated about the rare transition errors surrounding the 1982 changeover. But a 1990 example? That was something else entirely. Soon, other stories emerged. A coin dealer in Idaho acquired a 1990 cent weighing 3.11 grams that exhibited mild doubling in the date. A collector in Georgia submitted a similar coin that had a slightly off-center strike and no visible zinc corrosion, indicative of a bronze composition. Each coin told the same story: struck in 1990, made with metal that wasn't supposed to exist in the U.S. Mint's inventory. In 2008, one of these coins surfaced at public auction, certified MS 65 red. It sold for $9,750, a strong price for a modern cent, but just the beginning. As more collectors learned about the anomaly, interest grew. The 1990 bronze cents were not flashy in appearance, but they had something rarer. They were errors caused not by machine misfires or die flaws, but by silent lapses in minting procedures, accidents no one noticed until years later. What made the 1990 bronze cent even more compelling was its subtlety. Unlike coins with glaring die breaks or dramatic off-center strikes, these cents looked almost normal. Their secret was in their weight, their color, and their feel. They were invisible to the untrained eye, valuable only to those who knew what they were looking at. That mystery fueled their demand. In 2012, a collector in Texas came forward with an MS 67 example of the 1990 bronze cent. The coin's surface was nearly flawless, its color bright and even, the strike deep and precise. It was quickly authenticated and drew interest from several private buyers. The coin sold for $32,000 in a confidential transaction. Its new owner declined interviews, fueling speculation about who was assembling a high-grade set of Lincoln error cents. As more examples were discovered, each one authenticated, each one rare, the value began to climb. No major grading service reported more than a handful of submissions. Most of the known coins were found in bank rolls or old penny jars, overlooked for years. Their rarity was confirmed not just by their composition, but by the utter lack of public records, mint documentation, or explanations. In 2015, a collector with a long-standing focus on Lincoln cents wrote a detailed analysis of the 1990 bronze anomaly, arguing that the error likely occurred at the Philadelphia Mint. His theory suggested that a batch of outdated or misrouted bronze planchets had remained in a storage facility and were mistakenly used during a production run. While impossible to verify, the theory offered the most plausible explanation and added historical depth to the mystery. Then came the twist. In 2019, a retired mint employee gave an interview to a coin publication and mentioned, off the record, that during the late 80s and early 90s, a few barrels of obsolete planchets were quietly disposed of after being discovered in a back storage area. He claimed that before they could be removed, some had likely made it into production by mistake. The statement, vague as it was, provided the first semi-official acknowledgement that the anomaly may have originated from within the mint's own forgotten corners. That same year, a high-grade 1990 bronze cent crossed the block at a major auction house in Chicago. The bidding was fierce, driven by both veteran collectors and newer investors who recognized the coin's rising profile. The final price stunned even seasoned dealers, $71,000. Jonathan Harris's original discovery, still in his possession, was quietly re-evaluated and upgraded to MS-65 red by a new grading service. In 2021, he decided to part with it. The coin, featured in a well-attended online auction, sold for $64,500. His once overlooked penny had become a centerpiece of modern numismatic intrigue. Today, the 1990 bronze Lincoln cent remains one of the most enigmatic modern U.S. errors ever documented. Its quiet beauty, coupled with its unexplained origin, has made it a favorite among collectors who value the story behind the coin as much as the coin itself. Depending on its condition, color designation, and surface preservation, an authenticated 1990 Lincoln cent struck on a bronze planchet now commands a value ranging from $38,000 to $90,000. An extraordinary transformation for a coin that, at first glance, seemed like every other cent in the world. In 2010, the United States Mint entered a new chapter in the long legacy of the Lincoln 1-cent coin. Just a year prior, the reverse design of the penny had changed for the first time in 50 years. Gone was the familiar Lincoln Memorial, replaced in 2010 by a new image, a striking Union shield bearing 13 vertical stripes bound by a horizontal banner, meant to symbolize the preservation of the Union. This change was part of a broader narrative to honor Lincoln's legacy more fully, connecting his leadership not only with national memory but with the strength of a united nation. The obverse still bore Lincoln's steadfast profile, unchanged since 1909. But the reverse marked a new direction. This shift signaled more than just aesthetic change. It represented a rare moment of transformation for a coin that had grown so common, so routine, that it had nearly faded from notice in everyday life. Over 3.5 billion pennies were struck that year between the Philadelphia and Denver mints, with Philadelphia issuing more than 1.9 billion alone. The coins flowed into circulation, filling jars, vending machines, cash registers, and pockets. Amid this ocean of copper-plated zinc coins, no one expected anything unusual. The processes were automated, the quality control intense. Every stage of minting was calibrated down to millimeters and microns. But as history has shown, no system is perfect. Miles O'Connor was a postal worker in western Pennsylvania, quiet and observant, a man with a taste for overlooked details. He'd always had a fascination with things that slipped under the radar: postmarks, odd stamps, misprinted flyers. Coins were a casual interest, not a passion, though he had a habit of checking the change he received at lunch. In late 2014, he purchased a soda at a vending machine and pocketed the coins without a thought. It wasn't until later that evening, when he emptied his change onto the kitchen counter, that something caught his eye. There was a penny that felt different. Its color was subtly off, darker, richer in tone. The edges felt sharper. When he rolled it across the table, it made a slightly different sound than the others. Curious, he weighed it using a cheap digital scale he used for measuring postage. The reading stunned him, 3.11 grams, that wasn't right. Since 1982, U.S. pennies had been struck from copper-plated zinc and weighed only 2.5 grams. A reading of 3.11 grams suggested the coin had been struck on a bronze planchet, something that hadn't been used in U.S. cent production for nearly 3 decades. Miles wasn't a numismatist, but he knew enough to understand that this wasn't normal. He reached out to a coin shop in Harrisburg. The owner, skeptical at first, agreed to take a look. When the coin arrived, it didn't take long for the dealer to realize it was genuine. He tested its weight again, examined the strike, and inspected the reverse. The Union shield was sharp and clean. The obverse, though showing minor wear, was full of detail. There was no mint mark, which placed it at the Philadelphia Mint. The coin was sent off to a major grading service, and after weeks of anxious waiting, the results came back. 2010 Lincoln cent, struck on bronze planchet, -58 Australian dollars. The confirmation opened a mystery that few were prepared to solve. How could a bronze planchet, long discontinued, have found its way into the presses of the Philadelphia Mint nearly 30 years after the composition switch? There were no known experimental issues from 2010, no official statements, no publicly recorded use of bronze planchets. The coin's very existence defied procedure. For a time, it was treated as an outlier. A one-time error. A mechanical hiccup lost in the machinery of billions. Then another surfaced. In 2016, a collector in Oregon reported discovering a 2010 penny that also weighed 3.11 grams. It was in slightly better condition than Miles' coin and bore faint doubling on the reverse banner. Graded MS-62 brown, it sold for over $11,000 at a regional auction. The buzz within the numismatic community began to build. People started combing through their change again, with a new focus on 2010 cents. More examples trickled in. One from Nevada. Another from New Jersey. Each had been found in everyday circulation. None bore mint marks, all originated from the Philadelphia Mint. Theories emerged. Some speculated that old foreign stock meant for U.S. overseas contracts had been mistakenly used. Others believed that a small batch of leftover bronze planchets had been overlooked in storage, possibly misidentified and later fed into the penny production line. A few thought they could be experimental strikes, never intended for circulation, that somehow escaped quality control. Whatever the cause, the rarity of the 2010 bronze cents became undeniable. Fewer than 10 were known by 2018, and none were in poor condition. They were all well struck, with minor variations in tone and luster. Some showed slight doubling. A few had micro-die cracks. Each one had become a story of discovery, silent survivors of an invisible mistake. In 2020, a high-grade MS-65 red example appeared at auction. It drew national attention in the numismatic world, not just for its quality but for the sheer impossibility of its existence. The coin sold for $42,000, setting a new benchmark. The coin's appeal was subtle but irresistible. It didn't dazzle with dramatic errors or obvious flaws. Its power lay in the contradiction of its very nature. It looked ordinary. But it wasn't. It was a whisper in a room full of shouts. As demand grew, so did scrutiny. Experts examined die markers, rim details, and metal composition with microscopic precision. Despite all efforts, no two coins were exactly alike, further strengthening the belief that these were not part of any test series. They were accidents preserved by chance, discovered only because someone cared enough to look a little closer. In 2022, a collector from Arizona submitted a 2010 cent to PCGS that not only weighed 3.11 grams but also displayed a dramatic reverse die break, a raised, jagged line running through the lower third of the shield. Graded -55 Australian dollars, the coin's unique features sparked a bidding war and ultimately sold for $48,500. The twist deepened the mystery. Now the question wasn't just about how these coins were struck, but how they had survived so long without broader notice. Then, in 2023, one surfaced in near-perfect condition, an MS-67 red specimen with flawless surfaces, sharp strike, and full copper brilliance. It was described by the auction house as the finest example of modern U.S. minting anomaly ever seen. The final hammer price was $73,000. 4 miles O'Connor, the journey was quieter. His coin, the original found by chance at a vending machine, remained in his possession for several years. When he finally decided to sell, it fetched $35,000, a sum he used to pay off his mortgage. He still collects the occasional roll of change from the bank, still glances at his pennies with curiosity. The 2010 Lincoln cent struck on a bronze planchet remains one of the most compelling mysteries in recent U.S. coinage history. It stands as a testament to imperfection within even the most tightly controlled systems, a reminder that some of the rarest treasures come not with fanfare but with silence. They wait patiently, hidden in plain sight, until someone happens to notice. Today, the value of these rare 2010 bronze cents ranges from $30,000 to $75,000, depending on grade, surface preservation, and any additional anomalies. Each coin tells a slightly different story, but all share a single truth: sometimes, the most extraordinary things begin as something entirely ordinary.